Welcome everybody to another episode of Investors Gallery, where the running joke is eventually we'll shoot a podcast in my actual art gallery. The art gallery is on the other side of the room. One day I'll finish it so we can shoot in there. We're actually working on shooting some podcasts in a real art gallery and not just my home. So I'm really excited for that. I'd like to thank everybody who is listening from other platforms, Google Podcasts, iTunes, so on and so forth. Deezer is one of them as well. I have another amazing guest with another amazing story, an investor, and I'm really excited about this one because so many people, as soon as I tagged you, so many people was like, Elijah is like amazing. He's great. So I'm really excited to get into your story. And to preface this, we were going to do an introduction call, and I was like, no, wait, because we kind of missed the first one. And I was like, no, I really want to have the first introduction, a proper introduction call or conversation over the air, because, that's when the good stuff comes out. When you record, it's always on the first take, the fifth and the sixth take, it's not always as good. So, sir, introduce yourself to the audience and welcome to the show.
Man, thank you for having me. I didn't realize it was like that. So I really appreciate being here. Thank you. You want to hear about myself? Is that
yeah? So tell us about yourself. I see that you are ex-military, and how did you transfer from whatever you want to disclose about your previous personal life or business to what you do now, and the ups and downs in what you do now, and maybe sprinkle some gold nuggets in there as well.
Sure. So my name is Eli. I'm a veteran, 21 years in the military. I spent about 7 years in the Army. I was a paratrooper. I got out after my first couple enlistments. Got out, went to school for about 2 years, and I joined the Air Force. That's where I finished my career. I finished my degree in business while I was in the Air Force. About 15 years into my career, my wife and I kind of realized we needed extra income coming in. So when I retired, we had enough income to stabilize this, right? So we kind of shifted it into real estate at that time because we were passionate about it, and we started kind of buying up small rental houses, and we got to a couple of them, and we're doing pretty good after a couple of years. But we kind of realized that at that phase we weren't working fast enough to meet our income quota. So we had to kind of scale quicker. And I remember driving around town one day. So I'm in Fort Worth. I remember driving around town one day, and I saw an apartment complex, and I was like, man, who owns those things? Like that'd be way more efficient to own something like that rather than 40 or 60 houses, across town. And so we started kind of networking and meeting people. And I met the owner of a mentorship group. Back then, he didn't have a mentorship group. It was Think Multifamily. But this is before he had it, and so he was trying to build it up and kind of getting ready to launch it. And I met him. We started kind of talking, became friends, and he started kind of mentoring me like one-on-one. And that same year, that's 2017, I deployed, and so I would wake up like super early in the morning, about 3 or 4 in the morning, and jump on the call with him and kind of help him build his whole platform. Right? I was kind of a guinea pig for him. So he'd like send me like documents and videos, and I'd edit them for him, and he'd mentor me at the same time. So I was getting mentored. I was helping him out to kind of grow his side stuff too. Then when I came back from my deployment, he launched the group. I was the first one in it, and that was like 2018. That first year, I bought up like 2 different deals, about 320 units. A year after that, met my partners, Chris and Nathan, and now over the last like 3-4 years or so, we've been, we own and operate 815 units across 3 states, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. And now we're under contract on a deal, our first deal in Texas. So we'll close out like next month. And after that, we'll be, just north of 1,000 units, so we're still out hustling, bustling, making mistakes, learning, and growing. Oh, hey, you're, I can't hear you, buddy. issues there.
Yeah, battery is dead.
There you
Change
go.
the battery. Yeah, the
Gotcha.
battery's dead. Let me change the batteries. But I can still talk to you. So actually, do I have any more batteries? I do. Hold on one second. There we go. All right, can you hear me now?
Oh yeah.
All right, I'm back in the green. I'm glad I was able to figure that out. So you started with one partner, slash really mentor, kind of transitioned to a partner, right? And now you have, so are all four of you guys still together?
It's just 3 of us.
So just the 3 of you guys, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you meet your partners? And the reason why, let me preface this, the reason why I asked that is because we teach in our course that it's really, really important, one, to have partners. You can do this by yourself. We just wouldn't suggest it. So tell us how you met your partners, how you vetted them, and how you felt that chemistry to keep going.
So we met in the mentorship group, and I heard through the grapevine, you know, like in a little network that we were working in, that they were looking in Arkansas, and I was looking in Arkansas. So I called them up, and I was like, hey, so it seems like you have like these resources, and you know these people, and I got these resources, I know these people. Let's combine resources, and you know, let's split profits, but you know, we could probably do more in volume. And we really didn't form our company. So our company is Atlas Multifamily Group. But we didn't.
Great marketing, by the way. I've been seeing you coming on my feed. So okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. That's been another thing is marketing, right? But anyways, but we waited about almost 2 years before we actually formed an official group, but like an official company, because we wanted to, you know, work deals like together, make sure our families got along, make sure we got along, you know, fully vetted like our characters over 2 years, because you know we travel together. So like, you know, we go up and do property tours, and so we're in Texas. Our deals are in Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. You know, so that's a several hour drive. You know, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 hours to our properties. You know, so we spent, you know, a good 2 years, you know, like being in the car together, traveling, going to conferences, hanging out on the weekends, you know. And so as you're working through these deals, you kind of see, you know, who has good chemistry with you, who can handle stress, you know, who's honest with you, who's open with you, right? And that's kind of how we did it. So we were very cautious, even though we got along, you know, like we were good friends, our families got along, you know. We wanted to make sure, because when you throw a deal in there, you know, you got millions of dollars of you know, bank's money, your money, and other people's money, man, they can change very quickly, you know. So we're like, hey, we want to make sure that, you know, if we're going to get, you know, quote unquote married, you know, that we can handle like this kind of like partnership. So that's kind of how we did it, at least.
So for your first 2 deals, did you just create the entity for the assets themselves?
Yeah.
Or okay.
Yeah. That's how most people in the mentorship. It's like if you're in a mentorship, you know, you just kind of partner with people, and then you buy the deals, and you guys operate them, right? Yeah.
Tell us about your first deal. And was it a fall on your lap type deal, or was it you had to underwrite 1,000 deals to get to it? What did your first deal look like?
Yeah, it's pretty tough, you know. So I met a guy in the group, and you know, we were kind of the same mindset, you know, pretty driven, and we're like, hey, you know, let's give each other a year, right? So we're gonna go out there, be hunting down deals, underwriting, and so we promised ourselves, okay, 12 months to find our first deal, and we found it about 6. We found about 5 or 6 months. But I remember, you know, for those, I mean, there was a point, you know, probably like month 5 or so, where I was underwriting deals, and I was like, man, this is crazy. Like, man, we're underwriting on these deals. We're touring properties. We're having to fly out, you know, to some places, or drive out some places.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you're just constantly just grinding. And it got to a point where I got, you know, pretty almost burned out because I was working full time too.
Mm.
So I was still in the military, and I was still working. So anytime I had, any kind of free time, I'd wake up in the mornings like early, and call people, work on the business, underwrite stuff. During lunchtime, I'd go meet investors, underwrite deals if I could, and then I'd come home, hang out with the kids for like maybe the wife and kids for an hour or so, and then I'd go back to work. And that's kind of how my life was for 5-6 months. And he told me, he was like, hey, I know you're getting burned out, it's really tough, but we said 12 months, right? So let's just keep grinding. And shortly after that, we got our first deal. It was 110 units in Atlanta, Georgia.
And in Atlanta. Wow. Hats off, sir. That's a really good market.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is 2018, so,
Okay.
we got, it was a great deal. We bought it about 32K a door, which is probably unheard of.
Wow. Yeah, oh, yeah, not heard of. No, we're definitely
Yeah.
6 figures a door now. Well, it depends on the market, but
Mhm.
yeah. Have
And
you exited that deal yet?
yeah. We held it for about 2.5 years. At the end of last year, we sold it. So
Okay.
it did very, very well.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still hearing about deals that were taken down between 17 and right around 2020-ish. Like, oh yeah, the equity in there is crazy.
Yeah, I want to say, I mean, we did very well. I mean, we came in, executed our business plan. We poured capex and did our renovations, our exteriors. We lowered expenses. So we did very well. I would like to say that it was all us, but it wasn't, right? I mean, the market for sure carried, like it carried us. So it was a combination of both, but we did.
But you
very
put the
well.
work in. You put the work in.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't say that we could have like the same results, but we probably still would have done really well if we hadn't, I'm sure. But we ended up hitting like over 120% return for everybody. So it did.
Wow.
Yeah, it did very good.
How many investors did you have subscribed on that deal?
Yeah, man, don't get me. Maybe 25 or 30, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I mean, it was, it was 110 doors, so it's about 4.75 million total, right?
Okay.
So back then that was a huge deal to me, right? But our raise was like 1.3, 1.8 million, I think, or something like that. So it wasn't like, but back then that was like astronomical. So I was like, holy crap, how is this money, But so I mean, I think we had our about 50K, a minimum.
Cool. Was the earnest hard day 1, day 30, day 15?
No, they didn't. No, they didn't have like hard money at that time. It was probably around like 20. I think it's like 2020 was whenever 2020 was when like the hard money stuff started happening more and more, right? It did go hard after we signed like the PSA, right? I mean, it kind of goes hard after that.
Right.
But we came in, did the PSA, did our DD, and then after that it went hard, and we were good. But we were good because we kind of knew already that it was a good property. So
right, it was kind of one of those slam dunk deals.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it had some challenges. I'm not gonna lie. It had a fire. One of the buildings burned down. So luckily nobody got hurt. And so we had to work with the insurance, and that's always a fun thing to play, right? But kind of work with the lender and the insurance. But we ended up taking a settlement, and it was easier to kind of, because the property was already so big, because back then it was 114 units, 4 units burned down, which is why it's why I say 110 now. But when we first bought it, it was 114, but 4 burned down. We got the insurance payment out, and just kept operating.
What are you seeing now as far as the market? Are you seeing deal flow slow down from your perspective, our broker, because I'm definitely getting a lot of calls from brokers more than normal. And they're kind of making me nervous, actually. But what are you seeing on your side as far as deal flow and how activity is moving?
Well, we still see deal flow. We do. We're not underwriting so much right now because we're trying to close out like this deal that we have now. So it's 200 units in Lubbock, Texas, and so we're trying to close this one out. And so we're seeing deal flow, but we're trying to close this one out first before we move on to like other ones, right? Because we don't want to get tied up and have like simultaneous. I know guys who can do that. They have
huge teams,
right? And we probably could, but like, hey, let's go ahead. Like, there's a lot of volatility out there. We're not the kind to really sit on our laurels, right? Like, we're not going to stop and go like pencils down. We don't believe in doing that. Like, we have some stuff in our pipeline, but yeah, there's deals out there. We're talking to lenders, we're talking to brokers still, and they're talking about, like how much of a struggle it is. And I think a couple of deals I've heard about coming back, that couldn't close, because of volatility. I don't think it's like this widespread tsunami quite yet that everyone's like I'm watching on LinkedIn or on Facebook, and it was talking about, this wave of foreclosures like it was back in 2008. I haven't seen that yet, but I have heard from other sources that there's a lot of struggle, at least.
Yeah. I don't think I personally don't think it's going to be like a mass foreclosure. I think that it's probably going to be sales are going to increase as far as selling off because you underwrote that property at a 3-4%, and now you're a whole percentage above. So if you need to do some kind of bridge or something, is it might not make sense anymore. So maybe just getting out of the property, I can see happening more, and then letting the next person kind of deal with that. How has your personal life changed as far as, free time or it's funny. Hey, George. I was looking at George, and that's kind of where I got this question from, because he spoke about it. But how has your life changed coming from, working in the military to what you do now? And are you full time, or do you still have split time between both?
No, I retired at the end of last year. And so like whenever I was like my last 5 or 6 years in the military, where I was working both on the business and in the military. And so, man, that was crazy, because I had my regular duties, right, in the military, and then I had the business going on, and I had my family, and then any other kind of personal time. I had, friends or whatever that. So that was probably some of the biggest struggle, trying to figure out how to balance that, and I think a lot of that, I had a big shift, probably like my last few years while I was in the military. I had a big shift because I was always like tired and frustrated, and, kind of just a crazy mindset, right? But then I heard a quote somewhere, and it kind of clicked. It was like, hey, you asked for this. Like nobody told you to do that. Like, your wife didn't ask you to work two full-time jobs. Your kids didn't ask you to go on, on this crazy journey to go buy these multi-million-dollar apartments. Your boss didn't ask you to be a bad employee, right? Like, so I had to kind of realize, like, well, what I expect? Did I expect it to be easy and all that? So from then on, I told myself, okay, from now on, I'll be a good employee, because that's what I told my boss that I was going to do. I'll be a good husband. I'll be a good father, right? Like, I'll be a good business partner too, right? So I'm not gonna break down under stress. I'm not gonna lose control of my emotions, my mindset, and go, and get angry with people. I'm not gonna get stressed out. I'm not gonna, get burned out and quit on people, right? So I think that's probably been like one of the biggest shifts that's helped me, at least, was just tell them, like, and it sounds so simple now, but I guess I really wasn't thinking about it in that fashion. And I still like this day, when things get hard, I'm like, hey, nobody my wife didn't ask me to get stressed out and then come home and bring it home, right? Like that's not what I'm gonna do, right? So I try hard, and it's never easy or simple, but I
Yeah.
try hard to, if I'm home, I'm present, right? Like I'm not gonna be on my phone. If I'm at the store with her, I'm not gonna be on the phone talking to people and on phone calls. Or if I'm watching a movie, I'm not gonna be on my laptop underwriting deals. Like there has to be a work time and there has to be a stopping time. I know it kind of bleeds over sometimes, but um, is there really a balance? I mean, sometimes you have to work a 16-hour days, right? And then sometimes you can have like free time too. Like today, I kind of cut out early, went bowling with my family, and so, and when I was bowling, I made sure I was not, I cleared my schedule and I made sure I was not going to be, on the phone or talking to other people. Now I knew I had like this podcast tonight, so I made sure
Yeah.
I was present, and they, I bowled, had fun with my kids, so um, I hope I answered your question. I kind of went on a rant there.
Yeah, you did, and you've also shined a light in some of my shadows and cracks. I've had business cards since 7 years old, so that was my first desire ever, was work, business, professional, successful. Everybody on my dad's side is entrepreneurs. So that's all I saw, was people owning their own business and trying to make it to the next level. And I think for the people who will listen to the podcast and the people that will see this video also will be in our YouTube playlist under Investors Gallery. It helps them understand that the struggles that they have are the same struggles that most of us have, and not even as syndicators and investors, but as just an entrepreneur and a person who's trying to escape, the W-2 to go and be free. I am currently listening to, I forgot the gentleman's name. Somebody on Facebook recommended the book, The Millionaire Fast Lane. And I think for most seasoned entrepreneurs, it won't be any kind of wake up call. It's more, the book is funny because it's stuff that after you've been an entrepreneur for a while, it's stuff that you realize, but to hear somebody voice it, it's like, yeah, yep, that's kind of what happens. Yeah. And as like you said, I had to come home and learn. You had to learn how to be present. You didn't flip the switch and say, hey, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm an entrepreneur between these hours. And then after these hours, daddy and husband and friend and whatever. And I think a lot of people who are still in a W-2 space or do not have a lot of people around them that do have that freedom and flexibility, they don't realize how much more of a challenge or how much of a challenge it is to switch that. Because when you're at a W-2, your 9 to 5 or whatever the hours that you have to work, that's work. Unless you're on a C-suite level, that you're the CEO or you have some high-ranking job, normally you don't have to do too much after you leave, for most positions.
Yeah.
And the space that we're in, you just have to have the time, and where you place the time is up to you. So you could do this at 3 o'clock in the morning, from 3 to 6 o'clock in the morning if you want, or you can do it from 8 to 12 at night. As long as you're putting in the work, you can email a broker. You don't have to necessarily call the brokers. So I think you're voicing understanding that a lot of people are struggling themselves to, and myself included. I've been out all day, and I don't know if you guys can hear the baby hasn't been put down yet. So I think that struggles that all of the entrepreneurs have to deal with, and it's a big balance. So yes, you not only answered the question, I think you blessed a lot of people as well.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into, so like that's the mindset side, right? Which is a journey to yourself. I mean, that, because you got to kind of have to figure things out, like what works best for you and like your morning routine or whatever. But now we're at a place in the company, at least, we've been kind of operating now for 3 or 4 years. And, we're getting to a place where like, hey, we're in the weeds and everything, right? So as an entrepreneur, you know, we kind of realize like there's a big difference between go out there and buying properties as opposed to growing and creating a real estate investing company, right? So those are, you know, like you start out, or we did at least, like we started out with the vision of just buying properties, right? Like we're gonna buy properties, become multimillionaires or whatever it is, right? Like that's our dream. But then we're like 4 years later, we're almost at 1,000 units, and we're like, man, okay, so if we're running around right now, like at this kind of pace, and we have 1,000 units, how's it gonna look when we hit, you know, 5,000 or 2,000 or 10,000, right? Or we have, you know, 5,000 units plus, you know, multi-use and new development. And we have, you know, and we're growing and like we can't be in the weeds, you know, at the same pace. And so we had to figure out how to grow the company, right? So we had to kind of figure, okay, well, what are we good at, right? Like how do we hire out other positions, you know? And so once again, we're talking about partners again. So you got to bring people in, you got to scale your company, and then that way you can put people, you know, who can steer the ship under you while you work on the long-term vision of the company. And then that way you aren't stuck, you know, you don't leave your W-2 job and then get stuck working another job, right? Like that's not really what I wanted. You know, I want to be the owner of a successful company. And so and now that we're doing that, like that's been our focus like this year is, you know, how do we grow marketing? How do we grow our asset management? How do we grow our GC and all those different areas? And then that way we aren't stuck struggling and working 16-hour days again, right? Because we're like, hey man, we can't keep working like this for the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
You know, we need to be able, I mean, we're gonna always work, right? But I'm like, hey, like I did this initially for the family.
Right.
So I don't want to get pigeonholed and stuck where we're just buying like these properties and building with no real vision, no like real roadmap in sight. You know what I mean? So this year, you know, we made a concerted effort on our 2022 annual plans and say, okay, you know, how's Atlas going to look, you know, a year from now, 3 years and 5 years from now, right? And so that's that way we aren't stuck in the same frustrated, you know, cycle that we were just a couple of years ago.
Right. So basically, team meeting, how do we scale? Do you currently have a property management company that is under your umbrella, or do you still subcontract the property management companies?
We still subcontract. So we talked at the end of last year when we kind of recognized this as we were moving into like this year. We started talking to a lot of people, you know, people who were several years ahead of us, you know, who owned, you know, anywhere between like a few thousand to 5,000 to, you know, 40,000 units.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like, hey, years ago, you know, maybe 2, 5, 10 years ago, when you were in our position, how did you grow? You know, like, you know, you seem like you're doing pretty well. You got a big company. Like, how big's your company? You know, like who's actually under your company? Is it vertically integrated and all that kind of stuff? And so we kind of realized like the answers were all kind of the same across the board. It's kind of funny, but they all hired out marketing, asset management, and construction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some even did PM too. Like some did like the property management also. Maybe not in that order, but they did like those 3 or 4 functions. All of them did. And so they all kind of told us like, hey, you know, you have to figure out what's best, like what's first and what's best for your company, and then hire that one out first. Do well with that, and then kind of build like the next one, right? So in the last several months, we've done marketing, we've done a GC company, and we've done asset management. We haven't done PM yet. We haven't done PM. So the other problem is like, you know, how do you fund it, right? So you have to have, you know, enough funds. So you have to move funds around, train people up, get them on board, you know, which is a, you know, whole nother, you know, hey, right?
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, it is, man. It is. But it goes back to your point of good partners, man, because it is so hard, man, to find, good, trusting people who truly believe in your vision, well, no one's ever believed in the vision the way you believe in it, right?
Right.
But it goes back to how do you vet and hire good people?
Right. And work ethic.
Yeah.
I tend to find people who are always missing something. So they're super excited, but they don't not have the experience, but they don't have the fundamentals of either being the professional or real estate or something to help create a foundation. And otherwise you're getting a person, it's kind of like meeting a teenager who wants to start a business and they just have no clue whatsoever what it's really going to take. And then once they start doing it, they'll say, oh, I'm not ready for this, or I can't do this, or I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. So that's typically one of the issues that I have is they're always missing something, or they don't have, it's a plethora of things. I don't want to go down the list, but yeah. So that also segues into the next question I have for you. For your partners, what is everyone's role and how did they get into that role?
So initially, we all kind of did like the same thing. We kind of overlap
Right.
but once again, towards the middle or the end of last year, we're like, hey, we need to scale and grow and define our roles and all that. So at a high level, we kind of realized that Chris, he is great with asset management and construction. That's like his background. He can walk a property and then, kind of do a budget in his head, like right on the spot, right? Like that's like his thing. Like he's good at, like he's been an entrepreneur like most of his life. He's done construction most of his life. And so he's really good at understanding how asset management and construction works, and so that's kind of his role. My role is marketing and investor relations, right? So I'm the guy who goes on podcasts. I try to go to networking events, different events like seminars, speaking panels, things like that, to grow our investor base and then also to make sure everyone who's invested with us is happy,
Right.
essentially, right? Or informed at least.
Right.
Nate, he does like a lot of our processes. He's like an IT, he's an ex network engineer, right? So he's like,
Okay.
so he's very techy. So he's good with like processes. He's good with like our audio visuals, like our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Him and our marketing girl, like they work together and they're great with branding. They're great with like making things look sharp and the audio crisp. And he also runs like our GP team too, right? So like any kind of partners, he handles all that as well.
Okay.
So at a high level, that's kind of like what as time's kind of gone on, Nate and I have taken on the acquisition side. So as we so Chris will do like the asset management, but we'll do like the acquisitions, right? So we'll go out there and underwrite, we'll tour the properties. And then once we get under contract and then operate it, we'll get to Chris.
Okay. What is the grand finale look like? Are you getting to 10,000 units or 100,000 units or do you have an idea?
Man, we'd like to in talking with all these people that we talk to, to kind of scale our company, and we still talk to like tons of people even now, but we realize that the people who seem to do like the best in this industry, they start with multifamily, and then over time they add in another asset class. So they get really good with multifamily, and that's like kind of their core business. So they'll get up to 5 or 10,000 units or whatever whatever works for them, and then they'll add in a new development, and then they'll add in self-storage, and then they'll add in
Yeah.
XYZ, right? And then all of a sudden, over 5 or 10 years, they've diversified into car washes and all kinds of different stuff, all kinds of stuff. And I thought that was pretty cool, right? And I was like, hey man, that's like, I like multifamily. That's what we're really good at, right? But like, that's not going to be our end all be all. I'd like to be the guy I've met a couple older gentlemen who are like in their 70s or 80s, and they have enough income coming in. They aren't going to retire, and I probably never will either. I won't work at this pace forever. I'm not, but I think it'd be awesome to, in the next 10 years to hit a level to where I have enough income coming in to where I can just pick 2 or 3 different projects a year that I think are interesting. Like if I want to go buy marina, I'm like, hey, that's a really cool project. I'm gonna go work on that because that's cash flow is cash flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can pick 2 or 3 things that I think are cool and fun to work on and just do that, right? So I think over the next few years, we're going to slowly add in different asset classes, right? You can't do too many at once because then now you're just kind of chasing different things. But I would like to, I think Atlas will be the company that's kind of like that, right? You're diversified into multiple different income streams.
Mm-hmm. What advice do you have? Let me back up. So I know because this is on everything that I've sent you. But for the new audience, our audience is weird. I think 1, because we broadcast on so many platforms. 2, we broadcast at 8:00 at night. So a lot of people will rewatch videos or podcasts later. And then the next week it'll be 1 million people on the live call. But the purpose of this platform is slightly different than other podcasts. Our goal is to get people like you who are basically an expert at what you do and introduce you to the public. So we're basically inviting the public, hey, we're having a Zoom call. Come on, you can hear this gentleman today specifically speak about investing in multifamily and his success investing in multifamily. And you can ask him questions directly because a lot of people, like in our space, it's not too difficult to find somebody that has 10,000 units, and hundreds of millions of dollars asset under management. Mm-hmm. But outside of our space, it is really difficult. And for a lot of people, it's unfathomable. One, that people are, what was crazy to me, I would never have thought people like that would be that accessible. I would have thought someone who has, we have a partner or partners that we've talked to in the past. And one of the partners by himself is 1.4 billion assets under management, and I don't know, 15,000 doors or something like that. And, and it might be because we're in a space, so it's a friend calling on another friend. But what we want to do in this podcast, the ultimate goal is for you to get maybe more investors because they're on a call now, or they're going to hear your information in the future, or maybe see you getting tagged on LinkedIn and say, hey, sir, I saw you on whatever, and I got your information, and I want to be a part of your next deal. I live in Arkansas, or I live in, Lubbock, maybe if you do another deal here. So that's how you benefit, but the audience benefiting because they now have access, at least for, tonight, to someone like you.
Sure. Yeah. And of course, if I give, I'll give out my email. So hopefully in the future, they have access to me too.
What nuggets do you have for them? What is something that you had to come to the realization for yourself that you didn't see in books, you didn't see Michael Blank repeating it on his podcast or show or something like that? We have our edutainment guys, Michael Blank, Dan Hanford, and Joe Fairless. They're the kind of, I wouldn't say the pioneers, but they're the edutainment pioneers of our time. What gold nuggets do you have that is not being recycled in that sphere?
I would say a lot of people, say to, find someone who's got experience and kind of latch onto them, and like they'll take it under their wing, and like they'll, like you work for them for free, and like they'll train you or whatever, right? But I would say that that's only partially true. Like if you want to like work for someone for free, like you better bring value, right? Because like I get asked a lot, like, hey, I'll come up for you for free if you just train me. I'm like, okay, well, what do you know?
Right.
Well, nothing. But if you train me, then I can do it for you. It's like, okay, well, that's not like
Yeah.
I see where you're going, right? But like that's not really give, that's not really give and give, right? Like
Right. It's give.
it is, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because we all start from somewhere.
Right.
But I would say get educated, get knowledgeable, become really good in a certain skill and bring that to the table, right? So people like it doesn't like the person who's wealthy, like they lack something. Like you don't think they do, but they lack something, right? Like so you get good at that and bring it to, and say, hey, I got time, which I know you don't have because like you're trying to run your company, you're always traveling or whatever. So I've got time and I can underwrite. You don't have to train me. I can do it myself, right? Do that, bring value to them, right? Like don't make them have to stop what they're doing to train you, to bring value to you, for you to bring value to them, right? I think that's kind of a misunderstood thing, because I've heard like on podcasts and books, it's like, yeah, just find someone, and go for free. It's like, well, yeah, to a point, but really, like, are you really being valuable to them? So that's the best way to help someone out is to bring them value, right? That's one of them. Number two, man, is just like, I think, like I said earlier, it's your mindset. If your mind is, if you have an agitated mind and it's not calm, like one thing that helped me out was I got into Stoicism. That's a Greek philosophy, right? And one of the things that I did was I had to define for myself like what the ideal man looked like and or what he acted like, right? So like the way I acted, the way I talked to people, if I walk into a room, how do people, treat me and react to me, right? So I had to kind of develop a set of like principles and core values. So that way, when I operated in my day, like if I lost my temper, I would have to kind of pull back and say, okay, is that how that man would act? No, it's not, right? And so I think a lot of people, are kind of like me when they first start out, like they have a job, they have a family, they have friends, they have like this, now they have a business that requires your attention and you're torn and you're frustrated. Well, you got to set your mindset straight, like, and if you don't have your mindset, and certainly if you don't have a spouse who supports you, like I see people who, will have all this stuff, but like their husband or wife isn't very supportive, right? Like they're tired of losing money or they're frustrated too, or they're always gone. But so I guess to break it down, your mindset, bring value to people, and make sure and like you can have all those things, but but your family life has to support it too. Like you can have skills, you can have all that stuff, you can have all the time in the world. But if your family life isn't situated, man, I see a lot of people, they don't make it because of that too.
It sounds like you're telling people to go read How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, is that like that book?
That book kind of talks about it teaches that everybody is a bank, and when you're able to deposit something in someone's bank, you're also able to make a withdrawal. So we have a relationship, and you're in Houston. I say, hey man, come to Houston or come to my side of town. I'll take you to lunch. Well, the next time you come, if I say, hey, come take me out, we're bros now, you won't have a problem with it or as much of a problem because I've deposited so much into your bank. So that it's kind of similar. I'm picking up hints, from that. If you are going to work for a syndicator investor, whatever, somebody in private equity or whatever, if you train yourself to do underwriting, and you come to them, you're depositing by saying, hey, give me deals so I can underwrite them and deposit. Each deal is a deposit. So now when I need to ask you, well, how do I find more investors like you? Now you're taking a withdrawal, but you've made enough deposits where you have the ability to make a withdrawal.
Yeah, or they underwrite for you for free. And then if they find a deal, then you partner with them and help them close it, right? Like that's the idea. So that's that's kind of one angle. Is like, hey, like if you want to, go find bigger deals, learn how to underwrite them or something, right? Like learn how to raise capital, learn how to do multiple different things, right, in this industry. And then, go do that for people. Go, like for instance, go underwrite a deal, go find a deal, and then say, hey, I've been working with you now for a while. I've been underwriting deals like in your markets, like using like your criteria. I know how you operate. Can you help us close? Can you help us close?
Last question, then we'll see if anybody has in the audience has any questions for you. And then we'll wrap up.
Okay, cool.
The question, which is kind of similar that I asked earlier, what does your day look like as a successful syndicator, investor, entrepreneur?
Oh gosh. So it begins with my morning routine, right? So that's the first thing I do is, so I wake up, I work out, I read, and then I journal. And then after that, I'll spend an hour and a half that I call a jam session, but it's an hour and a half blocked off my morning where I plan out my day, and I start knocking out my three biggest priorities, right? So those are like my priorities that I crush those, then my day's won, right? So those that's what I do. And then after that, I have typically calls with people, or I have to go meet somebody. So from usually from around like maybe 10 to about 3 or 4, I'm back-to-back calls, or on maybe like a podcast or something like that.
Yeah.
And then in the evening, I might go out to an event and go do something. And then I'll come home and kind of I'll spend the evening with my family, with my wife and my kids, and then we'll have dinner and kind of wrap it up.
Do you typically take weekends off?
I do. Yeah, I didn't always do that though. I used to work probably my first several years. I worked nonstop, and it really helped out. It did. It put us where we are today. But then as time went on, I kind of realized the family and me to a degree, right? Like, I mean, I was kind of getting burned out too. But my wife was like, "Hey, like, where the hell are you? Like, what? like
I got that question about 20 minutes ago."
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's 8:50, and here we are chatting, right? No, this doesn't happen all the time,
Right.
And she's also at a place where she's like, hey, I get it. Every now and then, you'll work late, but I
that
try
bank, you've been making deposits, sir.
Yeah. Hey man, I try to make an effort to make sure that I don't do it all the time, right? So on the weekends, unless it's an emergency or critical, like, like, hey, the deal will not close if we don't do this, or like, hey, this guy's investing $1 million and he will pull out if you don't call him.
Right.
So, like an emergency, right? If no one's going to die, hey, it has until Monday. I'm sorry. But then I'm kind of guilty of waking up every now and then kind of early on a Saturday, and being creative and thinking of, a new marketing campaign, or, maybe, doing some research on markets or whatever. But as the family wakes up, I jump off and I'm with them.
Yeah. Awesome. That's amazing. So we're going to jump over and see if anybody I'm not gonna call you out, ma'am, but I appreciate you. We're gonna see if anybody has any questions. Oh, you know what? I said on the last podcast that I was gonna tell everyone that they could post their information in the comments. Do you know Tim Ma?
Oh yeah, you know what? Oddly enough, yeah, he's been showing up on my feeds too. I think he's like he's big on like funds and capital raising or something like that. Is that what he does? Yeah.
He's been doing he's been having investors on his show that have raised 100 million or more. And he's just been doing an amazing job. And it's funny because I promote everyone in my space, all my brothers and sisters, I promote them. And I want you to go to their podcast and I want you to check out, everything that they have. I don't think it's not normal in any industry. But Tim Ma, what he does on his podcast is he does the same thing. He has individuals post your name, what you do in the chat, so then everybody can see. And I said in my last podcast, I'm taking this from Tim. Tim has an amazing idea. His podcasts, by the way, are also absolutely amazing. He had Vinny, I can't think his last name. He had Vinny on a day. He's had not Rod Khalif.
Vinny Chopra.
Vinny Chopra was on today. Zach Hoppen, I can't pronounce his last name. Anyway, he's had absolutely amazing guests and amazing turnout. So also go check out Tim Ma, Google him. He's on Facebook, LinkedIn. Find his podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where that came from, that thought. So if you do want to, audience, post your stuff in the chats, and you can also do save chat as well. But before I let this amazing gentleman go, is there anyone who has any questions about anything that he said or comment?
Well, a question for me is, as a syndicator, when you're looking for a good investment, what are you looking for? And at what point during your career as an entrepreneur did it take you from point A to point B and made it just that much closer for you to reach your goal?
So are you, the first part of your question, are you asking like what kind of returns are we looking for?
What criteria are you looking for when you're looking for a good investment?
Gotcha. So we're looking for typically 150 units and above, right? So like our sweet spot now is about 150 to about 350, something like that. Like we're pretty comfortable in that space. Mainly in Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. Like those are the markets that we know the best. We know guys who spread out, like in like 10 markets or something like that. We're looking at, we are branching out like in Florida a little bit now too. But primarily, we're pretty deep in those markets, but we do that. And then how we got from point to point B, I realized I was successful enough to leave the military after. It's funny because I didn't realize it at the time. It was funny because I was talking to somebody, maybe like another investor, like we're at lunch or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, so what's your plans?" I was like, "Well, I want to be out there buying 1 or 2 deals a year and selling like 1 or 2 deals a year." And he goes, and this at the time, like right when we had sold our first 2 properties. And he goes, "Well, Eli, aren't you already doing that?" And so I was like, "Holy cow, yeah, I guess I'm already there." So when we had income, coming in from our current properties, and then we were selling them, that kind of let me knew that we were at that level to where I'm at a phase where I can kind of leave my full-time job now. I was still scared. I was still worried because I had been in the military for like 21 years. And, I had worked for somebody else for so long, but, I had the impetus at least to say, okay, I think I'm ready to go ahead, and leave and go do this full time now.
I'll stay in that same vein. What is your criteria for your IRR, your internal rate of return?
Up until about 2 months ago, until all this volatility happening, cash on cash was like 10%.
Mhm.
We had 100% return, and IRRs were like high teens, like
Okay.
15 to
18,
19%,
19,
something like
yeah.
that. Now cash on cash is like between I would say 7 to 8, right?
Mhm.
7 to 8, 8.5, something like that, right? That's like the going cash on cash. We're still hitting 100% returns, and IRRs are still high teens, 15 to 18, something like that. They're hard to find though. I would say they're harder for us to find at least, but we're still looking for roughly like the same kind of return criteria.
Thank you for that answer. Is there anyone else that has a question or a comment?
No, I want to say appreciate Elijah for kind of shedding that light. Like Pressley mentioned, I mean the struggle between balancing everything. I mean, especially us with families and the little kids and working a full-time job, trying to start something new, trying to change this trajectory of our lifestyle right now. I appreciate you shining some light on that and really just know you just got to get down and you got to be really meticulous with it. And I've heard for a while, and they focus on one thing and then once that gets going, then do something else. Like I have in my brain, I have multiple different things that I'm trying to accomplish here. And I don't like the answer of postpone the other 10 things until trying to do all of them, but postpone all of them until this one is at this point just didn't really sit well with me. But okay, just confirmation. Okay, look, if you want to get this done, you want to get all these things done, then you have to schedule that into your day to at least move the needle forward on these items each and every day to keep them progressing forward. So appreciate that.
Oh yeah, man. Like there's been a saying that we kind of go by, my partners and I at least. It's like the dog that chases 2 rabbits catches none. So because man, like we see so many people on like social media, flashing like, oh yeah, I'm doing ATM machines, or I'm building a data center, or I'm building, I'm in self-storage, or I got this new flashy thing, and it's all sexy, it's all cool, it's all exciting, and it makes us want it even more, right? So we have to be constant, like, hey man, like I know if I don't focus, I will chase the next object, and all of a sudden, like 3 months later, I'm still kind of chasing like both. And so yeah, it's a struggle this day, because but I think people who don't focus on themselves and they watch this, we all watch like Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, we all do that, right? But like if you're not cognizant and you're watching other people too much, then you'll start chasing like their dreams, right? And you'll kind of lose focus on your own stuff, at least in my opinion. It's worth anything, but yes.
I definitely agree. Get on social media to post your posts, schedule those, get that work done, do some social listening, and then you got to get off where you keep falling to that trap of just start scrolling.
Yeah, man, social media is a powerful tool, but it's also a double-edged sword, because you'll catch yourself scrolling, all of a sudden, half an hour later, you're like, what the hell am I looking at? Like, what is
yeah.
I started out looking for multifamily syndicators, and now I'm looking at videos on gyms or something. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I get you, man.
Thanks, Justin, for that question and comment. Anybody else, question or comment? Because he has to get back to husband and father role.
As we all do, right?
Right. All right. So I appreciate you, sir, for joining. I hope that this podcast is going to end up being a tremendous blessing for you. Awesome story, really awesome story. And I learned a lot from every podcast, and this one was no different. I'd like to thank everybody who was listening and the multitude of other platforms that this is on and will be distributed to. And I will see everybody next week, next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central. We're on everything. We're on it. Just be there. Just open your phone and we'll just pop up. Right.
You mind if I give out my email real
Yes,
quick?
sir. Yep. Please go ahead.
All right. So if you want to contact me, Eli, that's ELI at investwithamg.com.
This will be your so what I've been doing, only because this wasn't added to the intro packet that I send out. I can grab your about at your LinkedIn. But if you want to send me a tailor-made one, you can do that. So this video specifically will be put on our website, and it will have either your bio from LinkedIn or whatever you send me under that.
Sure.
And then I can also post, I'll also post details in the description of the podcast, and it kind of follows all of the platforms out as well. So
Okay.
It was already going to be there, but it's
Yeah,
good for them to hear it audibly as well.
Of course. Awesome. Well, perfect then.
All right, guys, no questions. I'm gonna give you one more shot. It's always weird. They either have a million questions or not, but no questions or comments? Going once, going twice. All right, so we're gonna go do family time. I appreciate you guys sliding a little business time in. Thank you. And I'm gonna call you Eli because we're brothers now.
Of course.
Yeah, if you need anything from me, I would love to be able to deposit into your bank, sir. And
Sure.
Thank you again.
Man, we'll be in touch.
Yes,
Y'all
sir.
take
See
care.
you next time. Bye.
Bye.